So the next session that we have is it's really, really special to many of our hearts at Avatar. It's called Managing Your DEI Role, right? We talk about DEI and we talk about the role. So what happens, the DEI work often involves juggling multiple initiatives. There are limited resources. I know many of you can relate to this. And we navigate complex organizational structures. Is there an intersection if you can apply the principles of lean and DEI? And is there an intersection and can we, bring the two together? So that's something that we have on the next panel to talk about. The next panel does aim to equip all of us with some tools and some strategies to lead more effectively and create lasting positive change within our organization. So on the panel, we have Irani S. Roy, CHRO, Signify Greater India, human resource professional, Irani with over 23 years of extensive HR leadership, strategy consulting, and business partnering experience. Her area of specializing is operating models in organization design, HR transformation, organization change, and restructuring in M&A scenarios. And that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Irani, for joining us. May we have you up on the stage, please. We also have Richa Sethi, Vice President, Human Resources, Global Head, Capability Development and DEI Coforge. Richa, can we have you up on stage? Oh, Richa is a seasoned human resources leader with over 22 years of rich experience in talent, technical leadership development, CSR, and DEI. She specializes in preparing a global and inclusive workforce ready for the future. She currently heads the capability development portfolio at Coforge, along with heading the DEI charter for the firm. She brings a business-focused and practical approach to various facets of HR, having worked closely with business leaders and drive organizational growth. Thank you so much, Richa, for joining us today. And we have Mr. Santosh Murthy Neriyanuri. He's the Senior Director Operations at KBR India, who's going to moderate this session. Thank you so much, Mr. Santosh, for accepting to moderate this session, because we thought truly you're one of the experts in this particular field to moderate the session. So thank you so much, Mr. Santosh. Mr. Santosh oversees business performance, engineering, and project delivery with a focus on growth, team diversity, capability, and capacity building. He holds a PG degree in mechanical engineering from IIT BHU and executive MBA from SPJ School of Global Management, Singapore. Santosh has over 30 years of experience in engineering, procurement, and construction projects related to hydrocarbon industry, quite a bit, I must say. His personal journey right now is on promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion, and is marked by his dedication to empowering future generations. Thank you so much, Mr. Santosh, for accepting our invitation to moderate the session. The session is exclusively sponsored by KBR India. Over to you, my dear panelists. Sorry, we missed the part. I think we will have to mic you up, Mr. Santosh, if that's all right with you. Thank you. That won't take much time. I think we can give them a big round of applause. खाना वाना खा लिया है, थोड़ी बहुत एनर्जी तो होगी. Thank you. 4 बजे पक्का चाय. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Lakshmi. And when the topic was told to me that you need to moderate that, and when it was said that lean, I'm a mechanical qualification. So it really touched my heart that how do I really correlate this to now to DA? And it's really a good topic for us to join on. Just a brief about company I represent. It is KBR. And it stands for Kellogg Brown & Root, and it is headquartered in US. We are actually into science, engineering, technology business, where we contribute in the global warming in terms of providing solutions for net zero. That's a brief about our company. And we have 4 offices in India: Gurgaon, Pune, Delhi, and Bangalore and Chennai. So why, for me, as a person, why this inclusive business is important? I would like to share thoughts to connect the topic what we have today. For businesses, DEI initiatives play a crucial role in achieving their environmental, social, and governance goals. So with this inclusive business, we see a lot of benefits. But when I was talking to one of my clients who was sitting in a discussion, he said that they are conducting mental health checkup in their organizations apart from the health checkups. What they say is that inclusive business has got direct correlation to mental health in the organization, thereby creating that psychological safe environment. So it really touched upon how managing a DA role and connecting these things, how are all interrelated. And apart from that, the companies which prioritize DA initiatives can really mitigate concerns or risks associated with discrimination or harassment or bias. So avoiding these issues, I think we are going to create a good governance for our organizations. But having said that, having this positive impact of inclusive business, but managing a DA role comes its own with challenges and opportunities. Challenges really addressing the unconscious bias and really bringing those inclusive culture across all levels. Let me share our own example where our diversity percent was only 12% and we moved to 24% in a span of 1 year. And the energy and the efforts and where it was really, it was so difficult. And also we had learned on this. So it makes me touch that managing DRL is not so easy. So today's topic is lean to lead, not just leading, it's lean to lead. So, and it's going to be focusing on the journey of managing DRL effectively. So with that, I would request my esteemed panel members to share their opening remarks on this topic, lean to lead. Yeah.
Hi everyone. Firstly, let me applaud Avtar for one observation I've made. I have got multiple. Hello, am I audible? Yeah, I've been to multiple conferences in so many years, but this is the first time I see a ramp and a step. I don't know if you have noticed, but I think that's the power of I in this conference. So thank you, Lakshmi, for these little things that matter so much in today's world. But coming back to the topic, I just wanted to mention that. Lean to lead. I think the whole principle of DEI, equity, inclusion, and diversity, and lean rests on two common platforms. The first is inclusion at the core, because if you don't include, you don't improve. So what is the power of the people? And when we say power of the people, it doesn't mean power of the power, but power of the collective might of the people to bring in that change, to eliminate waste or to make a process more efficient. And the second one is about continuous improvement. And we'll talk a little more about it. But what resonates most times, being an HR professional and also quasi-DEI professionals that we are thought to be, while it's a much broader agenda, is, most times you're asked, what's the outcome? You're doing this DI, what percentage will your gender move by in a year? And it is so difficult to say that it is always incremental. It is not a commercial sales number that we're talking about. It is talking about changing the purpose and the DNA of the organization. So I think both lean and DI work on the principle of incrementality to lead to long-term sustained outcome. And I will talk around this, where I think the resonation between the collective power of people and bringing all of this along for continuous innovation is very center stage to lean. So those are my initial thoughts.
Thank you, Iran. I think ramp as a step, which you said, when I was attending one DA conference, it was about that equity that was told. A person on a wheelchair was really happily saying that I could come to the stage because there was a ramp. Otherwise, normally it never used to happen. So these things really, when you look back, small things, but when you look our own organizations where the infrastructure is, we should look for those things which really create that type of equity. And that's what we are striving for, really. And the power of collective people, definitely, I think it's the purpose of the lean principles. We would like to really make some continuous improvement. I think how we can harness that, it's what we should really learn about it. What do you, Richa? I'd like to hear from you on the rest.
Sure. So I think ramp, I definitely noticed. I think the other thing, and I did want to compliment Avtar on it, if you go to the website, and there is a small little icon for disability in orange on the right hand side. If you click that, it changes the view of the page, asking you simple questions like, do you want a different view that will suit your needs? And I think that was the other thing I saw when I was looking at the agenda for the page. So absolutely. I think to the question around lean and lean to lead, continuous improvement, definitely. The space of DI is evolving. So I think that commonality of using an agile framework becomes critical. I don't think any of us have a 5-year confirmed waterfall view on what is going to happen in the space of DEI. It's ever evolving, and thus the principles of lean come in. Thus the principles of, can I look at the process from a hire to retire lens, eliminate things that are not working, keep it contextual to the firm that I'm operating in. Can I go ahead and also continuously keep improving? Something that Irani also talked about. What meant or what DI meant 3 years back is not what it means now. A lot of times leaders, and you've talked about the word lead, they need to learn DEI, right? There is that burden of experience. Do I know it all in the phase? I don't think we know it all. I think one of the panelists in one of the earlier sessions called out the fact on the usage of the word of or the usage of pronouns, and I think it was really sweet for that person to call out the fact that I didn't use them till I understood them. And I think those are those small things when we're looking at leading, we got to embrace the power of learning, especially in the field of DEI. And I think that's where the two coincide beautifully, Santosh, in my reckoning.
Thank you, Rich. I mean, the point which touched about waterfall and the projects normally we deliver, we use that waterfall, and then it comes. I think we have to do parallel engineering. That's what we use the language in project delivery. But exactly the Agile framework and the Lean, it's going to have definitely an importance and going to change things. And then the speaker which spoke before this session, I think the timeline, I think it's going to be changing. We should be fast enough to catch up. So that's what the Lean should help us out. So while we talk about DE initiatives are going to create that and foster an environment for sustainability or inclusive workspace or innovative workspace, but like any organization effort, there might be some inefficiencies to these initiatives. That's where the reference of Lean principles come in, basically to really maximize the value by identifying and eliminating those wastages. So in that context, I would like to pose this question to my panelists. How can Lean principles can be used to identify, eliminate waste in DI initiatives? I would like to start with Richa.
Sure. So, Santosh has been kind enough to brief us on the questions in advance, and that helps. At least the next few questions that come our way, and obviously the audience is going to build onto it. Yeah. So, when he talked about this, it really made me think, because in my head, I conceptually aligned with it, but then I'm a person who loves to take notes, try to get my maths in order, and that's why I've got my points with me. Okay, so I'll keep referencing them. Feel free to pick up what you think is your aha moment when you hear something. I think the first part to it, and I'm going to just talk about 3 or 4 big ones, Santosh, over here. The first is looking at defining the value of DEI from the perspective of your stakeholders. So what is it? Who is my stakeholder? Now, stakeholder could be a business. It could be the CEO. It could be the brand that I represent. But what is the context of DEI? And what value will I be able to bring to that? So that element of value, I think, becomes really critical, because if I land up running DEI as an HR initiative, it's a good to have, and it will boil down to 1 month of celebrations for Pride, for Women's Day, for mental health awareness, but it's just initiative driven. It's not part of the strategy of the firm. So I think the first is, what value from a stakeholder mindset do I bring when I run DEI as an agenda? Linked to that is, and this is a dichotomy of my job, I also have learning as a portfolio that I handle. Now, I would love to theorize on a few things. One of our panelists, I think, talked about unconscious bias, and you also alluded to unconscious bias. Now, I can run and write books on unconscious bias, but will my end stakeholder, which is my employee, love to learn about unconscious bias in that way? Maybe not. They would want something practical. They want something tangible. How can I apply? And retention time of learning anyway has gone down now. So actually at our firm, we initiated something called habit calendars, where we said, hey, you want to learn about unconscious bias? We'll not bore you down with a 3-hour e-learning module. We want it to become a part of your habit. So we actually launched a series called a habit calendar. Learn the habit of being aware of unconscious bias and beyond. So just a small example over there. Then from a continuous improvement, I think we talked about agile in a big way. So how do you answer your 5 whys? We talk about from a hire to fire lens or a hire to retire lens, depending on where the life cycle is. asking those whys rather than saying, I want to do this because I want to do it. So bringing your 5 whys back in. If I want to use AI for hiring, why? And ask the next why, and ask the next why, and ask the next why. I think the core that comes out will really drive the agenda as a business agenda for us. So I think that's the second. The third, I'm going to mix continuous learning and flow and efficiency. A lot of times DEI initiatives work well and equally well and fail fast if I only look at one cycle of the employee. I want to hire X number of people with disabilities because that is what I believe is the right thing to do. Do I have an ecosystem to let that person thrive in the organization? So that efficiency and that flow needs to be seamless. And I think that's the other piece that needs to be baked in. So do I have the infra? Do I have the skill set, the mindset, the tool set to bring the person in, but also help the person thrive? It's not about how many people I have alone, but what am I doing with them? So if I have people with an auditory disability, does every single town hall of mine have somebody with an ASL actually talking? Because otherwise then I'm excluding without realizing I'm excluding. We talked about ramps and infra. If I have people, or if I intend to bring people with disability, if I intend to bring people who, might be part of the LGBTQAI community, do I have the infra to support them? Do I have the mindset to enable their growth? So I think that's the other element. And I'm sure we'll talk a lot about data-driven decision making and all, but I'll leave that to the experts here as well. But those are three that come to my mind, Satosh.
Thank you, Rich. I mean, when it comes to really identifying the waste, I think value of DA and the stakeholders and really look into it where we can, and in that context, if you use 5 eyes, maybe we can come to that, okay, this may not add value or we should drop it. Yeah. Over to you, Irani, I would like to hear from you on this.
Okay, so a little different approach here is, and I'm trying to keep to the topic, and I'm not a good student, so I didn't pay attention when he was debriefing the questions. So I don't have notes, so I will speak from experience. But I think one of the pertinent things is, do we do a Pareto in the clutter? Yeah, so most times Lean talks about efficiency. And in the world of DEI, there is excess information. More than information, there's excess opinion. Yeah, and what becomes extremely pertinent for us in organizations, like Richa mentioned, is first to do a stakeholder mapping as to who are the people, opinion makers who are relevant to you. Most times I have some friends sitting in the audience who ask me this question saying, why is DEI so internal facing? Why don't we talk about DEI in our customer ecosystem? The principle is, if there is a society and there is a customer base that needs to be represented in your thinking within the organization. That's the first start point. And coming back to it, when there is too much clutter of opinions, you need to bring in data and you need to do a Pareto to say, these are the 2 things that we need to fix to be able to progress in the journey. And that is where I think we need to be extremely brutal. Otherwise, we can have multiple agendas, which will be most times tokenism, as I call it, and not leading to any purposeful change in the organization. So we will do a little bit of it. We will all celebrate Pride months and put a LinkedIn post with the Vibgyor and say we Pride, but 30 to 40% of that will just be tokenism. So are we really contributing, even if it is a small action, to the effort that we want to really make to make our organization inclusive, not just for ourselves and our employees, which are a representation and extension of our customers, but also make them feel included. I'll give you a real life example. I come from Signify, erstwhile Philips Lighting. I always like to mention it because we're building that brand while it's 6 years old. And we were talking about a narration, and the brand head was talking very passionately to me about how she had this whole anthem to be narrated. And I said, we sell light. Light is relevant for everyone. So where is the representation of persons with disability here? And, there were enough people in the room. A lot of people told me, but blind people don't need light. So I'm just, and I don't hold a grudge against anyone, because we all come with our deep-rooted unconscious biases, like Richa mentioned, and of course. But I said it is just so relevant to, sun is relevant for everyone. Yeah, a blind person could be completely blind, but there is a rhythm to sleeping and getting up that the blind person actually has, which we normal people don't realize because the circadian rhythm takes care of it. But what is the life of a blind person? So I'm saying in lean, you have to get to which opinion, which data is relevant and what will lead to maximum impact so that we are being able to really make a change and sustain that change. And that becomes extremely pertinent in how we lead our DEI initiatives as well. I mean, it's just a shadow of what lean teaches us. Get your facts right, know where you want to build facts from, what is the purpose that you're wanting to drive, is it short term or you want to build sustainable things, what will lead you to what is important, and how will you be able to take those baby steps to make that happen. So to me, Santosh, is direct reflection of how you apply both sides, in fact quite interchangeable. But whatever you do, I think in the story of DI and Lean, do your Pareto well, because we can all get lost by being busy and being very passionately talking about both these agendas and reaching nowhere.
Thank you, Virani. I think you spoke about in a way, connecting to prioritization and also looking into, we have a terminology called cause and effect matrix in our engineering parlance, but I think,
4Cs?
yeah, it's exactly. So I think that will help us to really dwell upon that. Yeah. So like we have trying to put our efforts to create an equitable and inclusive workforce, but also it is crucial to work upon the DA strategy, like any business strategy we work upon for entering to a new market or developing a new product. So in that context, what are those practical strategies, I would say, can be used for prioritizing the DA goals, and how do we allocate resources, I would say, efficiently or appropriately? Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Okay, I like efficiently and appropriately being used here. That's a good one there.
Yeah.
I think I'll build on one point, Irani, that you talked about. And this is something that came from our CEO, and it stays with me. He said that, our organization is a microcosm of our customer base. And I think that's a very good representation. We are a 25,000 strong organization. We've got presence in multiple countries, in around 25 odd countries. We've got 50 nationalities working with us. So our concept of DI needs to reflect that. So it'll have elements of, and we're an IT firm. So for us, DI is yes, gender, yes, people with disability, yes, people from the LGBTQAI community, but also looking at elements of cultural inclusion, looking at elements of how is it that you can look at diverse skill sets coming in, how can you create those journeys. So I think the first thing that we need to look at is, when we are setting goals for DEI, are they linked to our business strategy? Otherwise, it's going to be a standalone entity that gets reviewed once in 6 months, and that's about it. So first, linking that DEI goal to the business objective that we have. So if we want to drive growth, if we are looking at an organization ecosystem that helps thrive those 25,000 people in the way that we are looking at, my charter needs to reflect that. That's one, which is an inside out view. Then is an outside in view. What is it that employees from organizations are experiencing? What is their ask? And in the last 2 or 3 years, you'll notice the asks on DEI charter have really evolved. So now health benefits for a few organizations include things like gender reaffirmation surgery, something that we'd never thought of putting as part of our benefits portfolio, but organizations are doing that. COVID, I think, tested us in a very, very big way, especially in India and across the world. So how do we want to look at wellness in the larger canvas? For example, right after the second wave of the pandemic, as a firm, we said there's a lot of mental stress in households. So we actually extended our employee assistance program to go beyond the employee to up to 3 of their family members. We said, hey, we've got assistance programs available. We're going to extend it to your families as well, because that is our extended family. So we wanted to actually look at it from that lens. Things like parental leaves, right? Earlier used to be considered, it's the woman who's going to get a maternity leave, but organizations have restarted thinking about it. Adoption leaves, surrogacy leaves, different things that are changing, and thus, to the context of lean, evolve the landscape in the context in which you're operating. That's important. It cannot be customized once and left there. So that continuous improvement, looking at the relevance of what we are saying now, will it need a change, and how do we draw that change? I think that's important. So aligning it to the business goals. Then we've talked smart goals. Look at again the point that you were making around Pareto. What are your high impact things? DI is a lot of passion, but I think with that passion needs to be that moderation of saying, this is what I want to achieve, this is how I want to go about it, not trying to boil the ocean. A lot of our initiatives fail because we really want to do everything today. I don't want to leave anyone, I don't want to not include, right? So that the previous panel around not I, that becomes a problem. So being just a bit more thought through about it, knowing where you're headed and why are you headed there. And if you have to fail, no problem. But invest in it long term. So what might not work today might be the best solution tomorrow. So stay the course there. I think the third piece around, you talked about allocating resources. One of the things that we've done very consciously is our DI council that we've set up doesn't have anyone from HR apart from the CPO. The CPO chairs the council because I've insisted that he does so. But apart from that, there is nobody from HR there. I have leaders from the business, from my sales force, from the delivery across countries. They are part of my council who are actually helping us steer the direction of DEI. So the level of accountability is very high. It's not as if there are 10 people sitting in a room huddled up. Those people can bring back to me intelligence and knowledge of what will work in the country, in the context in which we're operating. So that really drives that culture of accountability, because those are my people who will drive the change. And they are right there from the business. So that's something we've done very consciously. And I think one element of inclusion that I'll end my piece with here is we talked about DEI from our employee base, but Coforge recently opened a public library in Noida, where we are headquartered, if you will, in India. It was actually built on the models of the US public libraries. It's a free-for-all opened library 6 days a week, where anyone and everyone from the community around can go and read, can go and spend time. It's got catalog of books that are physical copies, you've got digital copies, we've got copies in Braille. And that's helped build that digital scalability and scalability, which is very important for us as a firm, but equally important for the community. Because folks now can sit down there, and it's a lovely place. Anyone who heads towards Noida, do visit the library. It's precious. I mean, and I say it with a tad bit of bias, but I genuinely believe it's really nice. So, extending your efforts also to the community around you. And if you're able to leverage community, employees, and the agenda, I think it's the divine trilogy that takes care of everything. Okay, that was just my view of it. I don't know if you want to add anything to this.
Yeah. I think, thank you, Richa. I think you've spoken many points here.
He's the principal, he decides.
Yeah. No, I can make it open also.
Put pressure on you.
Yeah. I mean, good points. I think when you say aligning to business goals and business strategies, one of the key things you need to work upon when you strategize the DEI goals. And it's not just HR. I think it has to be across all the levels in the organization. Then it makes more inclusive. Otherwise, it is treated as an HR initiative. Good point. Coming to, I would say, as DEI leaders, I think we face a lot of challenges, and it really hinders our efforts to really make that progress. From the industry, I would like to share a challenge. Maybe it's a different one, but would say that more than 60% of my engineering workforce actually come from either chemical or mechanical or civil structural disciplines, and you don't find enough women at middle level and senior level in these zones. And then for me to work upon to create that type of inclusivity and diversity and that equity, it's really a challenge. So from that perspective, maybe the question to Iran is that what are those common challenges faced by DEI leaders, and how can we apply lean principles if you can utilize and overcome them? It's a bit a tricky one, but I think maybe you can try it out.
No pressure.
Yeah, I have to bring it to lean, so I'll try that. But, I think the most pertinent point is, as a DEI proponent or as a leader who's driving DEI, the biggest challenge that you have is how do you make it a journey of purpose and not a journey of short-term outcomes? And what is it that you're trying to drive out of becoming more inclusive, equitable, and diverse? And you all will say this is commonsensical. There are so many studies, Fortune 500, more innovation, more retention, more. So Irani, don't tell us what we know. Yeah, but it is very important to say that as an organization, where are you headed to? And what are the new areas that you really want to bring forth into your loop? And I'll take an example from one of my ex-organizations. I came from BFSI before I joined Signify, and I was part of an insurance firm, and we were the first insurance firm that kind of realized that there is, there's always a premium which is lesser for women. But how are we bringing persons with disability in? Because they are our customers who really don't see privilege. Now, I'll take banking, for example, and I was talking about this to a colleague of mine. We all do FDs, right? At least colloquial people like me do. And if you look at the FD rates, they are senior citizen and non-senior citizen. I mean, are the banking, we talk about financial inclusion and financial literacy for women all the time in the country. Can we therefore, and this is my thinking, can banking really realize that there could be a preferred rate for women? I mean, I'm just saying, or a preferred rate for marginalized persons with disability, and I very deliberately call them marginalized because they are, if you look at the workforce, less than 30 in 10,000. So can we do something more preferential as a purpose to make what we desire to do real? And that, I think, from a big picture perspective, is something that the DEI leaders should talk to. So the DEI leaders should talk to all the movers and shakers in the organization to show them the big picture and to help them drive the big picture. Most times we get stuck, and most times very commercial leaders, and I have faced this in my life, there are many HR people here, what's the business case of DEI? Why do you want to do DEI? Yeah, this was a question 7, 8 years back when I started talking about it, but I think now people don't overtly ask this. No one really used to ask the culture case of DEI. So internally link it to your purpose of the organization, but externally also look at what is the big picture that you're driving, not just for yourself, but society at large. And when Deepti in the earlier panel was talking about demographics changing like a gush of wind. You can't stop it, right? Our workforce is becoming younger and younger. So how is it that we're representing their thinking in how we are designing stuff for inclusion? Bringing in people is always easy, but are we really inclusive? And that's where I think, and I'm quite scared of you, so I'll bring in Lean here. That's where Lean really comes into play, because Lean says eliminate waste as much as you can, but Lean also says that prototype to success. Yeah. So most times, from ZS, Ankita, I think, sorry, I don't get her name. Apurva made a beautiful presentation. And she was talking about prototypes, and this is a borrowed thing from automobile industry. And similarly, like she was talking, automobile industry did a research over the years and realized that when a car crash happens, the maximum amount of death that happens is for women and old people. Now, this is a DI conference, you'll put the corollary through. And this is very evolved R&Ds that scratched their head, and then they realized that the prototype of the dummy that they were using to test a car crash was a man's size, and the statistics of length and breadth and height was that of a man. Now, it took us several years, and similar to the example that she was using. So, how are we using prototyping to make sure that we are inclusive? In Lean, we take everyone's point of view. But if in the room, the everyone is only men, then it is not everyone's point of view. If we are taking everyone's point of the view, if they are senior leaders in the organization, then you have forgotten most times in an organization the last person or the junior most person who's closest to the customer. At least from the industries that I come from, take banking or take Signify, where the person who's closer to my customer is the CSO or the most junior person. Do we get that person's voice included when we prototype? If you're not doing it, and if you're doing boardroom discussions and you're doing corporate office designing and innovation, it won't appeal to the customers. It will appeal to us. We will make grand, gala curtain raisers. We've done this, but it dies. So when you use lean for everything that you do when it comes not just to DI, but any strategy you're building, of course. But in DI, it becomes more and more pertinent. And I was talking to my co-panelists just before this, and I was talking about bias. Lean talks about data. Most times in DEI, even today, while unconscious bias is so spoken about, we all have it. I suffer it. I will lie if I say I don't have an unconscious bias. And they're deep-rooted, right? It's my cultural and my upbringing and the geography that I come from India, and my, all of that play a part. And that still lingers on. So are we really eliminating bias very, 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 very methodically? To say that, this, when I'm looking at data, and when you look at data in lean, what you're doing is you're trying to move away from perceptions. And in DI, it's very, she's a woman who's just got married. Very common example, she'll be pregnant in 2 years. This is a person, so our perceptions rule our data. So can we move away from perceptions and follow the lean of data? I think when you look at data, and then now we have AI to decipher and take out trends, I think it'll really be helpful. So that's my 2 bits.
Yeah. I think when you said, if you make it inclusive, I think we'll become automatically lean in terms of applying the principles. And then the example of prototype, I think that really is an eye-opener to really consider that inclusiveness is the key thing for us to happen. And then lean principles will automatically, some of things can happen by default. Thank you, Irani. When we speak about DI initiatives and managing DI role and lean to lead, I think finally it comes to sometimes resource availability, the limited resources, and it's not we have a function like DI in any organization. It is double-hatted, or I would say a person or leaders would be taking those roles. So it's needed a pipeline of capacity to really manage DI if you want to really speak about lean. So my question to panel members is that how can DI leaders empower others within the organization to champion diversity and inclusion efforts? We can start with Richa.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I do want to give 2 small examples that I thought of while Irani was talking, and it resonated when she said, everyone in the room if it's men. So one of the things that a lot of firms who are in the IT space are questioning, are your coders the true representatives of the ecosystem that you're operating in? If my target profile of a coder or a person in DevOps who's designing a solution, an IT tech solution, is an all men 25 to 35 age group, a person, their solution's not going to be inclusive. And biases will appear in the final product that you actually try to sell out to the market, because that's not right. A right representation of the firm. So I think that was one that really connected with me. People are actually questioning, who are your coders who are actually designing the code? Is that an inclusive group by itself? Because that prototyping starts from there. And a small example of a prototype that we tested out in one of my previous firms. I used to work for an insurance organization. So there is that similarity of the BFSI world that sits there. We wanted to build financial literacy in a big way, and that was our agenda. So we actually started working with women in the villages around us. And our agenda there was to create entrepreneurs out of them. And entrepreneurs for everyone here is not a multi-million-dollar firm, but a woman who's never worked and has a shop now. A woman who's never worked now has a tailoring setup over there. Small things like that. Over 2 or 3 years, we actually got a pool of 100 women financially independent. And I was just generally talking to them. And for our Women's Day celebrations, we used to call them as panelists, because I thought that was true conversation. And we spoke in Hindi, exactly to the grassroots. And I'll give you one example of what she said, and I'll translate it in English for anyone who doesn't understand Hindi here. I asked her, I said, what has changed in your life? So she said, मैडम पहले ना मेरे घर में मेरी कोई बात सुनता नहीं था, मेरा ओपिनियन कोई मांगता नहीं था. अब मैं पैसे कमा के लाती हूँ तो मेरे घर में आवाज है. Right? So now that I earn, I have a voice in decision making. right? And that was a small experiment we did. Now that NGO actually has spread across India and is doing multiple pieces like that. But it is about taking those bets on people, start small, but really create an impact rather than saying, I'm going to find that perfect solution. And then when I know the perfect microcosm or the entire universe being created is when I'll take the first step forward. So I think that's where also lean makes a difference. I didn't realize it at that point in time that we were doing or applying the principles, but it worked. Back to your question, sorry, on leader empowerment and how can you create that ecosystem. I think the first and the foremost is, as leaders, be visible advocates. And I'm consciously using those two words. Everyone says I'm an advocate of DEI. Everyone says I believe in it. I champion the cause. I walk the talk. But be visible when you're doing that. And it is important because the ripple effect of a leader is humongous. I cannot be sitting, and somebody alluded to it, that this training is not for me, it's for my employees. That mindset needs to shift, right? So for all the DEI leaders or even business leaders for that matter, I'm not limiting it to DEI leaders, it might merit us, and I'm making a provocative statement consciously, it might merit us to empty our own cups and stop believing that we know it all. I think that's the first step. Be visible advocates. So if tomorrow there's some celebrations on Pride happening, use your pronouns. It's just being inclusive. We don't have to make grand gestures. In my verbiage, do I consciously keep using he throughout? Right? Do I consciously change that pronoun to a they or a them? That's being inclusive. And I think that walk the talk in very visible terms is the first step forward because that sets the tone. As leaders, do I create psychological safety for people to voice their opinion? You could have surveys, but if nobody's speaking in the surveys, it should worry you. If everyone gives you a 5 rating, I think negate the survey. The question needs to be, am I creating that environment where people can actually voice what they have? Because that's when you will get to really feel what the pulse of the firm is. AI at times, by the way, can help there. There are lovely chatbots that are there. I know there was a question asked by one of the folks here, but AI chatbots is a brilliant way to pick that input, which HR by itself cannot do. So it's a good way to use that as an input criteria. I think also there is the power of storytelling and data coming together. As leaders, can I create powerful stories when I connect with my audience? So every town hall that you do, are you only showing business stats or are you talking DEI in the context of business beyond just the numbers and the representation? I'll give you a small example of one of the things that we've done is we've created this series of small videos called Employee Spotlight Series. So we just pick up employees, ask them about their lives, their things, and we turn them into like a 1.5 minute video. And that's flashed out to everyone in the organization. It's a spotlight we're putting on a person. Doesn't have to be a man or a woman or a person from the community, but just an employee working with us. So just spotlighting things like that. But as leaders, learning the art of storytelling and weaving it into your narrative when you're in town halls and forums. So again, advocating DEI in the true sense of it. And maybe just the last one there, and I'm going to then hand it over to you for the other bits as well. But are you actually creating an ecosystem where you reward inclusion, but also reprimand non-inclusive behaviors? And that's important. So tomorrow, if you see somebody doing something which you believe is diluting the spirit of DEI, and in our firm, we've branded all our DEI initiatives as Bring Your True Self to Work. That's what we call it. If there is behavior that you see or an action that you see which is diluting that spirit, not doing anything about it also sends a message, right? And you can do that. If I use my people, we've got this pool of people that we call as our DEI advocates. They come from all walks of life. Not to your point, just the boardroom. There are employees who volunteered to drive these initiatives, and they are our DEI ambassadors. They talk the language. they talk the action of what can be done. But as leaders, do I set the tone, correct the tone if it is going wrong? I think that's important. Inclusion, not by choice, but by design, right? And not allowing non-inclusion as and very, very harshly when required, right? So just a few things that come to my mind. The rest I shall write as we speak.
I think you've spoken most of it. The only I think I'll repeat myself. I say set the tone on the top at the top. But I think the other big thing that I've realized for any DEI strategy or IED strategy to be really successful is have it embedded into your long-term sustainable goal of the organization. Sustainability is in DEI is a big part of sustainability. You would make it center stage to your strategy. Yeah, when your strategy is not driven just by top line, but by the bigger ask of the community, I think it really helps. So whatever your DEI strategy is, get that embedded. Because like it or not, 80% of the organization works to your strategic direction that the organization has set. You keep influencing. The second thing, of course, is set the tone from the top and walk the talk. Most times we see that, you set the tone, but when it comes to walking the talk, you have all your efficiencies and why Irani, I can't wait for another 3 weeks, and why I need a person from this industry background, with this and that to fill this role because I want someone to come and hit the ground running, just beats all the tone from the top. So it's not just the tone, but how are you walking the talk and making that one example of making that one effort at inclusion when you can. And fourth, I make it very simply, and this is what I believe in. And Dr. Rajesh is sitting, so I've taken a lot of inspiration from her, is that don't try and change the world. If you can just make an impact to one individual, do that. And that will lead to a ripple effect. So that is what the leader should ask for. If you ask for the moon, you may get none. But if you ask for one small step to say, hey, can you bring one person in, diverse person in to your team? Hey, can you do this act of inclusion consciously? Hey, can you do this one bit of realizing that you're not being equitable and be conscious about it and just urge individuals to do that one thing? I think it just sees it grow. So I think it's making it personal, almost making it personal to your agenda. And lastly, I think DI only thrives with authenticity. So whatever a leader does, if the leader is not authentic, he or she can talk, I'm including she very deliberately, can talk all DEI, but no change will happen because authenticity is something that people see through. So if you're authentic as a leader, and you spoke about safe spaces, I take the example of Axis Bank, I take the example of Harish. A lot of organizations, and I'm not talking about Coforge, talk about bring your own selves to work. But can a person really bring his or her own self to work? Axis Bank allows cross-dressing. Axis Bank allows you to come the way you want to come. And I give a lot of credit to Harish, who's been pioneering this. But how many organizations actually do that in the real sense? We all talk, we all make statements, nice statements, but how many of us really live it? So if leadership is committed to do all of these things, I think it's not a hard task.
I think, Richa spoke about visible advocates and having inclusive. See, the industry which I come from, we use these words manpower most of the time. And we consciously try to advocate to use gender neutral language. We change it to work hours instead of manpower resources. So these things, I think, it plays a key role. I think by doing this, we are indirectly connecting the lean principles here, which I wanted to intend to do that, okay? And you point about, Irani, that don't boil the ocean. I mean, you choose, and that's more important. Actually, when you are passionate and you want to do many things, it might not lead to the efforts. That's where we should think about bringing in few things, test it, and make it apply. And then maybe we can make changes later in due course of the time. Thank you. I think we are open for any audience questions.
Thank you, Santosh, for that. Do we have any questions? Are there any questions? Okay, great. That's really wonderful. Thank you so much. Oh, yeah, we do have.
I think there's a question there.
Yeah.
There's a mic that we can make available to the person.
Can we have the mic, please?
Yeah,
Can somebody pass on the mic? Could you please quickly help in passing on the mic? Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry for the delay. Yeah.
My question is that many things we talk about, we define, and over a period of time, it becomes a mechanics. And even for whom we do, they know that it is coming as a kind of mechanical way. It will happen. It happens this way. Our company is not the only company that does this way. It is happening all across. So, what different we can do to make sure that it comes and perceived as a natural thing?
Are you alluding to equity as a concept, or are you saying that if one company is doing it, I mean, it is more commonplace everywhere, so it's fine? Is that what you're saying?
Overall, like DEI concept.
Okay.
So it is very popular. It is very much
It's popular.
area of focus. So
Yeah.
how to make sure that it is perceived as a natural and caring way of doing it?
I will give you my personal belief. Again, what percentage of women in India are, what percentage of the population is women? We all know, right? Between 48 and 49. Then why should we not have that in an organization? Yeah, that's the first question to ask. So whatever is in the community or in the society should be in the workforce, right or not? Yeah, we are a long way to go. So it's not about popularistic things. It's about saying that when can we balance ourselves as an organization, which is an entity made for the society, right? All of us are working in organizations who are serving the society and the community. So have the representation of the community in your organization, and that's all about diversity. When you talk about inclusion, you're happy, there was this lot of narrative on work-life balance. I just don't understand this term. But do you stop working at home? I want to ask all the women here. Sometimes you work more at home than you work in office, truth be told. So, what is it that you are defining as DEI, and what is it that you really want to do? And that's what I said. Attach it to your strategic purpose of the organization. Why are you doing it? And also the second point is, today we have a lot of youngsters, right? They don't allude to top-down goals. If they don't see purpose, they will not. Anyways, they're not interested in building careers in one organization forever like we did, right? They will move. So if they don't see purpose, they will move. So it is very pertinent to not make it superficial. Yeah, and it's very pertinent for you and everyone in the organization to ask, are we really making a difference? And if we are making a difference, to whom are we making a difference? To ourselves, to our customers, or to society at large? And then I say, some people will say too much gyan on DI, but then you make it personal. You say, do I want to bring about that change? And if you want to, you will make that change. And then it'll start, and then we will have 48% women in workforce as well. So it'll be a happy day. Yeah.
And I'll just add 2 cents to that. If it has become natural means, I think we should work on the unconscious bias, which the importance of inclusivity, it is only driven at some corners, will not actually add value. And you said if it has become natural in the organization, the experience has to come in, the ecosystem thinking has to come in. For example, I just share my personal thing is that I'm a mechanic by qualification. My brother is also a mechanic by qualification. When my sister's daughter wanted to choose mechanical, he said yes, because I've seen the journey that it's not meant only for men, it's meant for everyone. So these things, one by experience, which has to travel to the organization and with the different ecosystems, then it becomes more natural. And then we have been in situations where there was bias that to go to site for any operations or maintenance work, we need only men. But no, I've seen a site in Rajasthan where there are many women working as a maintenance engineer. So these reflections should somehow plow back to the relevant organizations that make a difference, I would say. And it's a journey by itself, and that it has to be through experience based as such.
Can I just add maybe one
Yeah.
two lines? I'm sorry I didn't catch your name. Ashish. Ashish, two things. Food's eaten by all. I think what differentiates it when you serve it with love, right? So a lot of times DEI could be there, but is it relevant in the context in which you're operating? And may there be a day when it is so natural that you don't think about it, right? We haven't gotten there. 48% workforce is not women, or 50% workforce is not women. Pay equity by gender is not a 0%. There's no, we haven't reached there where there's no disparity. It is not natural. That's the unfortunate part of it. The fact that we need conferences like this to say, hey, we need people to talk these pieces, it means it's not natural, right? The day the air conditioning shuts here, you will realize what's not natural, right? So a lot of times what we believe, the reason why it might come across as mechanical is if the heart is missing, right? And there are those, do I know the why? Do I know the how? And then do I know the what? If as an organization, I'm only focusing on the what, and I forget the why, the purpose of why am I doing what I'm doing? How is it impacting lives, if at all it is? If I don't broadcast that message as a leader, and it is just a set of actions, it loses its power. You're right. It will lose its power. And I think for any initiative or agenda to flourish, what I love to, and I've read it somewhere, I don't know where, but it should have 3 H's. H, and H. The head, the heart, and the hand. The head is what you think about, the heart is what you really feel and bring to the table, and hand is your action. 3 come together, it will not just be another check in the box. And may there be a stage when we don't think we need to talk about it because it's that natural. We haven't gotten there though, definitely.
Thank you. Wonderful. That's really wonderful. Thank you so much, dear panelists. May we have Mr. Umashankar on stage to give away the mementos to our dear panelists. Really wonderful. The 3 H's, people, please do remember the heart, the head, heart, and the hand. And coincidentally, couple of years ago, the theme for Power of 5 was heart and mind. The heart and mind. So I think you just brought back memories to all of us. Thank you so much on that. And yes, Richa, we're going to take it very seriously. We're going to bring more Power of I conferences to Delhi since you invited us. So we will come to you soon again.
Absolutely would love that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Delhi, for being really, it really feels homecoming. A big round of applause to the Delhiwalas. Thank you so much. Thank you, Umashankar. Thank you, Mr. Santosh. Thank you so much. Thank you, Rani, and thank you, Richa. Thank you, everyone, for being really patient over here. We have a very